Have you ever had a coworker who was just incredibly sweet to your face?
Yeah.
Like always offering to quote unquote help you, but somehow every single time they get involved, you end up looking totally incompetent in front of your boss.
Yeah, or maybe it's a family member, right? Someone who is remarkably attentive, always checking in on you. But after every conversation with them, you walk away feeling just entirely drained.
Completely drained. And you're questioning your own sanity, honestly.
Right.
Because we are conditioned, mostly by movies and, I mean, just evolutionary biology, to
Mhm.
look for the charging bear.
Exactly. The obvious threat.
Right. We look for the loud, aggressive bully, the person throwing a literal tantrum in the boardroom or screaming at the dinner table. But what if the absolute greatest threat to your career, your relationships, and your mental health isn't loud at all?
See, it's a completely different kind of predator, and I use that word intentionally. The charging bear is easy to deal with,
Hmm.
because the threat is obvious. Your fight or flight system activates, you know exactly who the enemy is, and you can take defensive action.
You can run away.
You can run. But the people we are looking at today, they operate on an entirely different frequency. It is the ultimate psychological camouflage.
They smile at you.
They smile, they offer support, they validate your feelings, all while running a highly sophisticated, completely invisible operation to dismantle your reality, your reputation, your self-worth, all from the inside out.
And because they don't look like monsters, we let them right into our inner circle.
We invite them in.
We give them the keys to our professional and emotional lives. So that is our objective today. As a clinical psychologist, I usually look at the pathology, the trauma bonds, but we are taking your decades of experience in behavioral profiling, along with organizational data, to build what is essentially a forensic operating manual,
I love that. A manual.
where you're going to decode the hidden psychological operating system of covert manipulators and saboteurs. I want to look at the invisible transactions of power happening right in front of us. Behaviors that, honestly, most of you listening have probably overlooked for years.
And we really need to ground this in reality immediately. Because there is a huge tendency to dismiss this as just, workplace drama or people being overly sensitive.
Oh, absolutely. It's just a personality clash.
Right. Personality clash. It is not. We are talking about a systemic, measurable infection here. If we just look at the professional sphere, there's a massive study from the University at Buffalo School of Management focusing on what they term interpersonal aggression.
Okay.
This includes the exact covert undermining we are talking about today. Do you know what the financial cost of this is? Over $6 billion a year.
Wait, $6 billion? That's not a typo.
$6 billion annually, and that is just in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, that accounts for healthcare costs from stress-related illnesses, employee turnover, because, the best talent inevitably leaves toxic environments, and just catastrophic losses in productivity.
But, and I have to point this out here, is the thing about that $6 billion figure, it completely pales in comparison to the psychological toll on the individual target.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can replace a lost contract. It is much, much harder to rebuild a targeted individual's shattered sense of reality.
Which proves this isn't just a few bad apples making the office unpleasant. It is an epidemic of hidden behavior.
So we are going to look at this holistically. Having your perspective as a behavioral profiler is exactly what we need, because you look at the mechanics of deception, the actual tactical execution.
Right, the how.
Yes, the how. We are going to start right at the surface, the observable behaviors, layer 1, and the emotional lures in layer 2. And we are going to dig all the way down into the unconscious drivers and the massive societal implications. By the time we finish this investigation, I guarantee you will never look at a helpful piece of advice from a colleague the same way again.
I can promise you that. So let's step right into the crime scene then.
Let's do it.
Let's look at the observable behaviors and the emotional strategy behind them. Why are these covert predators so incredibly difficult to spot in the wild? It really comes down to a concept in behavioral forensics known as the unreal persona.
The unreal persona. Okay, walk me through that. What does that actually look like in, say, a Tuesday morning marketing meeting?
It looks like perfection. It is an excessively complimentary, almost aggressively accommodating personality.
Aggressively accommodating.
Yes, they never raise their voice. They never explicitly disagree with the group in a way that creates friction. Instead, they operate through pure misdirection. The entire strategy is to lull you into a false sense of security. They are actively trying to trigger your brain's trust receptors.
It's a lot like a software virus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a hacker doesn't try to break down your firewall with brute force. They send you an email that looks exactly like it's from your boss or your bank.
Exactly. The system only works if the disguise is flawless.
You open the door yourself?
You open it. Or, to use a biological analogy, think of the anglerfish in the deep ocean.
Oh, that's terrifying.
It lives in complete darkness, right? And it dangles this glowing, warm little lure right in front of its massive jaws. The prey isn't hunted in the traditional sense. The prey is drawn to the warmth, completely unaware of the teeth waiting in the dark. The covert manipulator's unreal persona is that glowing lure.
Okay, but if the disguise is that good, if they're perfectly mimicking a supportive friend or an attentive mentor, how on earth do you spot the trap before it snaps? Because you can't just walk around paranoid that everyone who is nice to you is secretly a predator.
No, you can't, and that would be a terrible way to live. You don't look at the lure, you look past it.
Okay.
You look for baseline deviations. I look at the work of former FBI agent Marc Bouton. He specializes in spotting liars and people actively engaged in undermining behaviors. His core premise is that the body almost always betrays the lie if you know what to look for.
We are talking about micro-expressions, like physical leakage.
Precisely. Executing a covert manipulation requires a massive cognitive load. I mean, your brain is working overtime.
Because they have to manage the lie.
Right. You are managing the fake persona, you are tracking the lies you've told, you are monitoring the target's emotional state, and you are constantly calculating your next move. It is exhausting for the central nervous system. So because the brain is so overloaded, the internal anxiety starts to physically leak out into the body.
Give me specifics. What is leaking? What am I looking for?
Bouton points out subtle shifts. You are looking for someone who is suddenly wringing their hands under the table. Or they start obsessively playing with a piece of jewelry, like a ring or a necklace. Sometimes it's the exact opposite of movement. They realize their hands are shaking, so they suddenly plant their palms completely flat on their lap or flat on the desk to physically anchor themselves. Or repeatedly twirling their hair when a specific topic is brought up.
Hold on. I actually need to push back on this a bit. Because, honestly, I am a fidgeter.
Are you?
Yes. I twirl a pen when I'm thinking. I bounce my leg when I drink too much coffee. People get nervous in corporate environments. Are we saying anyone with a nervous tic is running a covert psychological operation?
I am so glad you brought that up because context is absolutely everything in profiling. No, a nervous tic does not make you a predator. The absolute key phrase here is deviation from the baseline.
Okay, explain the baseline.
Every human being has a normal resting state of behavior, their baseline. If your baseline is being highly animated, talking with your hands, and bouncing your leg, that's just who you are.
Right, that's just Tuesday for me.
Exactly. But if we are in a meeting and I bring up the timeline for the new project launch and you, the normally animated, fidgety person, suddenly go entirely rigid, drop your hands flat on the table and freeze, that is a deviation.
Ah, I see. It's the sudden shift in response to a specific stimulus.
Yes. Conversely, if someone is normally very stoic and still, and the moment you ask them about a missing resource, they start rapidly blinking and twisting their wedding ring, that is the leak. You aren't looking for nervousness in general. You are looking for the physical manifestation of internal dissonance. The body is reacting to the cognitive strain of the manipulation.
That makes total sense. You're looking for the glitch in the matrix.
Exactly.
But let's look at the actual behaviors once they start operating. Because as a clinician, what I find endlessly fascinating is that the attack is rarely direct. They don't insult your intelligence. They don't attack you as a person. They attack your environment.
We call it the setup to fail scenario. This is the invisible transaction of power.
Unpack that.
If I attack you directly, I leave fingerprints. There are witnesses, HR gets involved, there is a clear victim and an aggressor. A sophisticated operator never leaves fingerprints, so they manipulate the environment around you so that you fail on your own.
Let's do some real forensic analysis on these tactics. Because when you are in it, it just feels like bad luck.
It does.
It's things like the sudden, mysterious withholding of resources. You request the software license you need to actually do your job, and suddenly the approval is delayed by 3 weeks for, quote-unquote, administrative reasons. Or the training you were promised is mysteriously canceled due to budget cuts.
Or the digital isolation. This one is incredibly common. You are slowly, quietly sidelined from vital email chains. You just happen to be left off the calendar invite for the critical decision-making meeting. And when you bring it up, the response is always a flawless display of the unreal persona. They say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought the system automatically added you. Let me forward you the notes."
And the notes arrives 2 days late. completely redacted of the actual context you needed.
Exactly. Their hands are clean. It was just a technical glitch, just a silly oversight. But the result is that you are walking into your presentation completely blind.
And the inverse of starvation is overwhelming them,
Yeah.
right? If they can't starve you of resources, they drown you.
The tactical overload, yes. They suddenly increase your workload without any logical justification. Or even more sinister, they assign you a high visibility task that is wildly outside your area of expertise, and they offer zero support or mentorship.
Which looks, on paper, like they're giving you a great opportunity. Like, we believe in you, we want to stretch your capabilities.
It looks exactly like sponsorship, but it is a perfectly engineered execution block. Because when you inevitably fail, because let's be real, no one could succeed under those parameters without support, they get to play the disappointed mentor.
Oh, that's dark.
They can point to your very public failure and say to leadership, well, we gave them every opportunity to step up and they just couldn't handle the pressure. It is viciously strategic. They have destroyed your reputation while appearing to be your biggest champion.
Which brings us to a specific verbal tactic. And honestly, this is the one that makes my skin crawl as a psychologist, because I hear my clients talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
It is the behavior that makes the victim feel like they are literally losing their mind.
The passive-aggressive concern.
Yes, the passive-aggressive concern.
This is a masterclass in covert control. Let's build a scenario.
Let's do it.
You are about to launch a massive initiative. The deadline is tomorrow morning. Everything is locked in. The manipulator pulls you aside, maybe puts a hand on your shoulder, adopts a look of deep, profound empathy, and says softly, I just want to check in. What if this goes badly?
Oh, it's sickening. Because on the surface, if you were to read a transcript of that interaction, it sounds exactly like care. It masquerades as support.
Let's pause and do the line-by-line forensics on that exact phrase.
Yeah.
What was said? What if this goes badly? What was meant? Underneath the words, you are inherently incompetent, your plan is flawed, and public humiliation is imminent.
What emotional response was targeted?
Pure destabilization, complete self-doubt. And what was the invisible transaction taking place? The manipulator just transferred all of their own anxiety, their jealousy, and their malice directly into your nervous system, while maintaining the flawless optical illusion of being a supportive friend.
And the timing is the key, isn't it?
The timing is absolutely everything. They say it when it is far too late for you to change the project, but just in time to ensure that you walk into your presentation tomorrow morning completely paralyzed by fear.
Your confidence is shattered.
Right. You stumble over your words, the project suffers, not because the work was bad, but because you were emotionally hijacked right before the finish line.
It is an emotional hijacking. And the brilliance of it, the dark brilliance, is that if you get angry at them for saying it, you look like the crazy one. They just back up and say, whoa, I was just trying to support you. Why are you being so defensive?
And boom, they have successfully cast you as the aggressive, unstable one and themselves as the innocent victim.
Which perfectly forces us to ask, who are these people? Let's go deeper into layer 3 and 4. We need to look at the hidden motivations and the ultimate power objectives. We are bringing in the behavioral forensics of workplace experts, Amy Gallo and Tessa West.
Excellent sources.
Because they categorize these covert operators into archetypes. We aren't just dealing with generic jerks who lack social skills. We are dealing with highly specialized psychological predators.
They are very specialized.
So let's pull up the lineup. The first profile is a fascinating pairing, the victim and the free rider. Now, I want to challenge this immediately, because in clinical practice, a victim is someone who has suffered genuine trauma. How can a victim be a predator? Aren't they by definition powerless and struggling?
That assumption right there is exactly what they're banking on.
Really?
Yes. The covert victim in this context is not someone who has genuinely been wronged and is seeking justice or healing. They are weaponizing distress. They use their poor me status as an offensive shield.
An offensive shield. Walk me through the mechanics of that.
If you are the perpetual victim, you are entirely immune from criticism. If you miss a deadline, it's because the system was against you, or your dog was sick, or the software didn't work. The power objective of the victim archetype is the complete avoidance of personal responsibility, coupled with the active blame of others. They suck all the oxygen out of the room. You can't hold them accountable without feeling like a total monster.
So they drain the emotional energy of the team, and Tessa West pairs them with the free rider.
Right. The free rider is the person who uses charm, likability, and maybe a little bit of strategic incompetence to coast on everyone else's hard work.
Strategic incompetence. I love that term.
They are the ones who show up to the group project at the last minute with coffee and donuts, pat everyone on the back, and take equal credit for the deliverable without having typed a single word.
So when you pair the victim's emotional drain with the free rider's labor extraction, what is the invisible transaction there?
They are mining you for resources. You end up doing their work because you feel sorry for them, that's the victim, or because they're just so charming and seemingly helpless about doing absolutely nothing, that's the free rider. The transaction is, I get your labor, and you get the privilege of feeling like my savior.
God, that savior complex is exactly what hooks the empath. The empath wants to heal the victim, so they
Yeah.
do the work. It's a perfect parasitic relationship.
Precisely.
Let's escalate to the next profile. The tormentor and the neglectful boss.
The tormentor is a fascinating archetype because it violates our deepest professional expectations. This is the person you desperately look to for mentorship. They are senior to you, they have the experience, they hold the keys to the kingdom.
You want their guidance.
But instead of guiding you, they actively haze you. They demand that you suffer the exact same indignities and trials they went through 20 years ago. It's a twisted, punitive rite of passage.
From a psychological perspective, that is the literal definition of repetition compulsion playing out in the workplace.
Yes.
The tormentor was abused by their mentor, but instead of breaking the cycle, they identify with their abuser. The only way they can validate their own past suffering is to inflict it on you. If they make it easy for you, it means their own suffering was pointless.
Exactly. And that links directly to the behavioral pattern of the neglectful boss. On the surface, a neglectful boss just seems lazy. They are completely disengaged for long periods. They abandon you to figure things out on your own. But it's not just laziness. It's a specific cycle of anxiety management.
How so? What's driving it?
The neglectful boss avoids you because they are internally incompetent and anxious. But as the major deadline approaches, their own internal terror of failure builds up. So to relieve their angst, they swoop in at the 11th hour, often the night before a major launch.
Oh, I've seen this.
They demand to know every microscopic detail. They completely change the parameters of the project. They rewrite your presentation, and they create absolute apocalyptic chaos.
Why do they do that? Why blow up a functioning project the night before?
Because creating chaos and then frantically micromanaging the fallout restores their illusion of control. If things are running smoothly without them, they feel useless. By creating a crisis, they get to swoop in and be the frantic savior. Your panic becomes their pacifier. They regulate their own anxiety by dysregulating yours.
That is deeply disturbing. Your panic is their pacifier.
That is a chilling way to phrase it, but it's completely accurate clinically. They are using your nervous system to regulate their own.
And it actually gets worse with the next profile.
Hard to imagine, but okay.
The kiss-up, kick-downer, and the gaslighter. Tessa West identifies the gaslighter as the absolute most toxic archetype in any environment.
And rightfully so. Let's break down gaslighting, because the term has been co-opted by pop psychology to just mean, someone who lies.
Right.
But true gaslighting is much more severe. True gaslighting is an assault on your cognitive faculties. If a gaslighter misses a meeting, they don't say, I forgot. They look you dead in the eye and say, we agreed yesterday that the meeting was canceled. Are you feeling okay? You've been forgetting a lot of things lately. I'm starting to get worried about your memory.
The objective isn't just to win the argument. The objective is to slowly, methodically tear down your self-worth and your trust in your own perception so that you become entirely reliant on their version of the truth. They isolate you in a funhouse mirror of their own design.
And they often operate in tandem with the kiss-up, kick-downer. This is the ultimate symptom of a diseased organizational or family system. This person will do absolutely anything to climb the hierarchy. They ruthlessly crush their subordinates, steal their ideas, and belittle them, while simultaneously offering sickeningly sweet flattery to their superiors.
The ultimate two-faced operator.
Yes. But what is vital to understand here is not just the psychology of the individual, but the psychology of the environment. The kiss-up, kick-downer thrives because hyper-competitive corporate systems and even certain rigid family structures actually reward this dual-face behavior.
This is a perfect transition because I want to look at the systemic issue. Why do managers or even patriarchal figures in a family intentionally undermine their top talent? It seems completely counterintuitive. In a business, you want your team to win. If your team wins, you look good. Why would a manager sabotage a high performer?
Well, the sources bring in this incredible research by Zaman on managerial sabotage.
Yes. Let's talk about this study.
The Zaman study is a massive revelation for understanding organizational profiling. It mathematically proves that in hierarchical organizations, a highly talented subordinate is almost never viewed as an asset. They are viewed as a replacement risk.
Walk me through the numbers on this study, because it blew my mind when I read them.
Okay, so the researchers wanted to see how compensation structures influence sabotage. They set up two scenarios. In the first scenario, people were paid based on absolute performance, meaning if you hit the target, you get the bonus. It didn't matter what anyone else did.
Pure merit.
Right. Under that structure, 90% of the managers chose to partner with the most talented, highly skilled subordinate available because the talent helped them reach the goal.
Which makes perfect logical sense. You want the A team if you just need to cross the finish line.
Exactly. But then they changed the rules. In the second scenario, they judged people on relative rankings. You only get the bonus if you perform better than the people around you. It's a zero-sum game.
Ah, scarcity.
Under that structure, the behavior completely inverted. Managers actively chose less talented partners, and when paired with a highly talented subordinate, they engaged in active, measurable sabotage.
So the manager's covert objective shifts from achieving the goal to mitigating your growth before you become a peer and threaten my status.
The environment dictates the behavior. If the system, whether it's a corporate ladder with only one promotion available, or a family system where only one child can be the quote-unquote golden child, demands that for me to win, you must lose, I'm going to make sure you lose. And I will use all the covert tactics we just discussed to do it.
This leads us into a much broader and frankly more terrifying conversation. Layer 8. We've looked at individuals, the gaslighter in the cubicle, the tormentor boss. But what happens when this covert operating system infects entire communities, industries, or multi-generational families?
It becomes a cultural norm.
Right. What happens when the sabotage isn't just one bad boss, but the actual culture itself?
We enter the systemic battlefield. And to understand this, we rely on two highly destructive, deeply ingrained cultural phenomena: tall poppy syndrome and the crab bucket mentality.
Let's start with tall poppies. I know this term is very popular in Australia and the UK, but it perfectly describes human nature everywhere. Tall poppy syndrome, or TPS, is a cultural phenomenon where anyone who stands out, anyone who grows too tall, achieves too much, or shines too brightly, is intentionally cut down by the group to maintain uniformity. You excel, and the collective decides you need to be trimmed back to size.
The invisible transaction of tall poppy syndrome is critical to understand from a profiling perspective. TPS is always a post hoc attack. You are attacked after you succeed.
Give me an example of how that sounds in real life.
Say you win a major industry award, or you get a massive promotion, or you buy your dream house. You walk into the office or the family reunion expecting celebration. Instead, the temperature in the room drops.
The silence is deafening.
Right. The goalposts are immediately moved. People don't congratulate you. Instead, they start using minimizing language.
Well, anyone could have hit those sales numbers with the budget she was given. Or he just got lucky with the timing of the market. Or must be nice to have so much free time to work out. Must be nice. That is the ultimate Paul Poppy phrase.
Yeah.
It implies your success was unearned privilege, not hard work.
Exactly. They minimize the achievement to protect their own fragile egos. Because if your success is due to hard work and talent, it means their lack of success is due to their lack of hard work. And their ego cannot process that reality.
The demographics on how widespread this is are absolutely staggering. There was a 2023 study by Dr. Rumit Billen, and she surveyed 4,710 women across 103 different countries. This wasn't a small sample size. 87% of those women reported having experienced tall poppy syndrome at work.
87%.
87%. You are actively penalized for excellence.
And that penalty takes the form of being ostracized, being left out of social events, or having rumors spread about your personal life to tarnish the professional victory. Now, we have to contrast tall poppy with the other systemic phenomenon, crabs in a bucket.
I love this metaphor. Or, well, I hate it, but it's incredibly accurate.
If you go crab fishing, you don't actually need to put a lid on the bucket you throw the crabs into.
What?
Because the crabs will police themselves. If one crab realizes it's trapped, figures out how to climb the wall, and is just about to pull itself over the rim to freedom, the other crabs will literally reach up, grab its legs, and drag it back down into the suffocating mass.
Okay, as a profiler, what is the deep psychological difference between the poppy and the crab? Because they sound similar on the surface, both are punishing success.
The profound difference is in the timing and the intent. Tall poppy is a reaction to your success. Crab mentality is anticipatory. It happens while you are still climbing before you have succeeded, and it is driven by pure schadenfreude and existential terror.
Existential terror.
Yes. The underlying mantra of the crab bucket is, if I can't have it, neither can you. If I can't figure out how to get out of this miserable bucket, I will be damned if I let you get out.
The sources outline a chilling, real-world example of this, and it moves us out of the boardroom and into the living room. Let's talk about family dynamics and weight loss sabotage.
Yeah.
Imagine someone has struggled with their health for years. They finally make a decision. They want to get healthy. They start eating right, prepping meals, going to the gym at 5 a.m. You would rationally expect their family, the people who supposedly love them the most, to cheer them on, to be their biggest support system.
But that is rarely what happens in a dysfunctional system.
No. Instead, their closest loved ones start mocking them. Oh, look at Mr. Fitness. They intentionally bring home their favorite junk food and leave it on the counter. They complain, you're no fun anymore. You won't even have one slice of cake. They get actively, visibly angry when the person leaves the house to go to the gym.
Let's do the behavioral profile on that family unit. Why on earth do they attack the person trying to improve their life?
Yeah.
It goes back to the Zaman study. It's the exact same psychology as a sabotage manager, just applied to biology and family. The family operates on a fragile, deeply established hierarchy. Everyone has their role. The overweight, struggling person is the designated failure, which allows everyone else to feel superior, or at least comfortable in their shared misery.
So when that person breaks the toxic habit and starts to elevate themselves, they become a threat.
They become a terrifying mirror. The person succeeding acts as a mirror to the rest of the family, reflecting their own failures, their own lack of discipline, and their own bad choices. The psychological threat is massive. The family's unspoken, unconscious message is, who do you think you are? You're not better than us. Get back down here where you belong.
It's heartbreaking. I see this in therapy constantly. The sources note that often, complete strangers on the internet or at the gym are vastly more supportive of your success than your own blood relatives.
Because the strangers were never in your bucket. Your success at the gym doesn't threaten the stranger's status quo. But when a bucket mate tries to escape, it forces everyone else in that bucket to consciously realize they are trapped. And rather than do the hard work of climbing out themselves, it is infinitely easier to just pull you back down.
This brings us to what I consider the major escalation point in this entire conversation. Layer 5 and 6. This is where the psychology gets truly dark. We spent this time talking about the predator in the next cubicle, the jealous sibling, the crab at the dinner table. But what happens when the predator no longer needs to be in the room?
What happens when they have successfully installed their voice inside your own head?
Yes, this is the ultimate form of coercion. Self-sabotage. The victim becomes the perpetrator against themselves. That University at Buffalo study found something deeply disturbing about the long-term effects of workplace undermining. Victims don't just stay victims. Often they internalize the toxicity. They become selfish, they start victimizing others, and they call it just playing the game. But the darkest tragedy is that they begin to run the covert operations against their own lives.
To truly understand this internal hijack, we need to rely on the psychodynamic framework of Dr. James Tobin. He asks the fundamental questions. Why do we procrastinate on our biggest dreams? Why do we neglect our own physical and emotional needs? Why do we fall into chronic people-pleasing, even when it destroys us?
As a clinician, I go straight back to Freud for this. Freud called it the repetition compulsion. It is the unconscious, overriding drive to recreate early childhood patterns of failure, neglect, or abuse. And people always ask me, why would my brain want to recreate trauma?
It seems completely irrational.
It does, but the answer is terrifyingly simple. Because the human brain craves predictability vastly more than it craves happiness.
The familiar pain is safer than the terrifying unknown of success.
Exactly. If you grew up in a chaotic home with a hypercritical authority figure, your brain wired itself to survive in chaos. You internalized that critical voice. You built what we call a critical parent voice in your own head, the superego. And every time you approach genuine success, peace, or healthy love, that internal voice sounds the alarm. It punishes you with guilt and anxiety because peace feels unnatural. It feels like a trap.
So your brain essentially lies to you to keep you safe in your familiar misery. Dr. Tobin outlines 7 specific defense mechanisms, the sophisticated lies we tell ourselves to justify our self-sabotage. I want to run a rapid-fire behavioral breakdown of how this internal hijack operates. Let's look at these mechanisms closely because this is the invisible code running in the background of our minds.
Let's do it. Number 1, rationalization.
Rationalization is the creation of a fake logical framework to justify a self-destructive act, the most common one in the workplace. I just work better under pressure.
Oh man, every procrastinator's favorite lie.
Exactly. That is the lie we use to hide the terror of starting a project and facing potential failure. By waiting until the night before, you guarantee the work won't be your best. But your ego is protected because if the boss hates it, you can say, well, I only had 6 hours to do it. You rationalize the self-sabotage as a unique working style.
Wow. Okay. Mechanism 2, projection.
Projection is when you take your own internal unacceptable feelings and paste them onto someone else. You're in a meeting and you feel incredibly insecure about your presentation. So you look at your colleague across the table and you decide, they are judging me. They think I'm an idiot.
When they aren't at all.
In reality, their face is completely neutral. They are thinking about what they want for lunch. The doubt and judgment exist entirely within your own mind, but you project it onto them to give your internal bully a physical face.
Which isolates you from them, effectively ruining the relationship. Mechanism 3 is reaction formation. This one breaks my heart in couples therapy.
It is tragic. Reaction formation is when you experience a desire that terrifies you, so your brain forces you to act out the exact opposite behavior. The classic example is pushing a romantic partner away, acting cold, aloof, picking stupid fights, and threatening to leave. But deeply, desperately, all you desire is intimacy and connection.
You attack what you want to protect yourself from the devastation of losing it later. You reject them before they can reject you.
Mechanism 4. Displacement. This is a redirection of energy.
The classic kick the dog scenario.
Right. Your boss humiliates you at work. You cannot scream at your boss because you will get fired. So you bottle that rage, drive home, and scream at your spouse for leaving a glass on the counter. But in the context of self-sabotage, the displacement turns inward. You direct the anger and frustration at yourself through self-destructive habits, binge drinking, negative self-talk, financial recklessness, instead of directing it at the abuser who actually deserves your anger.
You become your own punching bag. Then we have denial, which is simply refusing to acknowledge reality. We have intellectualization. I see this in highly intelligent clients. They overthink and analyze their trauma to avoid actually feeling the grief of it. They can give you a PhD-level lecture on why their mother was toxic, but they won't shed a single tear.
Right, they detach the emotion from the event.
And finally, regression.
Regression is returning to an earlier stage of psychological development when faced with stress. Acting completely helpless, playing dumb, or throwing a tantrum to force someone else to take on the responsibility of fixing your life. When we put all 7 of these mechanisms together, it leads to a profound and very painful realization about human nature.
Which is what?
That sometimes failing isn't about weakness or laziness or lack of talent. Sometimes failing is a twisted form of unconscious loyalty.
Unconscious loyalty. Let's unpack the weight of that phrase. Loyalty to whom?
Loyalty to a family narrative of struggle. Think about the crab bucket again. If your entire family identity for generations is based on suffering, blue-collar struggle, financial ruin, or being the perpetual underdog, achieving massive generational success feels like a fundamental betrayal of your bloodline.
You fear success because success means isolation. If you win, if you get wealthy, if you find a healthy, loving marriage, you no longer belong to the tribe of suffering. You lose your identity. So you sabotage the promotion, you blow up the marriage, you spend the money, just so you can fit back into the familiar warmth of the bucket.
Which perfectly sets up the next crucial phase of our investigation, the consequences. Because what happens when you do the impossible? What happens when you go to therapy, you push through the self-sabotage, you escape the crab bucket, and you survive the tall poppy pruners?
You arrive at what Dr. Johnny Torgerson calls Success Island. And let me tell you, it is a very lonely geography.
It is. As you achieve more, you are met with external resentment. The people you genuinely thought would celebrate you, the people you dragged up the mountain with you, turn their backs. They make the passive-aggressive comments. They minimize your wins.
And you realize the island is shrinking. Torgerson points out a fascinating survival mechanism. To survive the constant covert attacks, you start retreating to the center of the island. You stop sharing your wins. You stop talking about your accomplishments at family dinners. You get the big promotion, and you don't even post it on LinkedIn because you are terrified of the backlash. You start succeeding in absolute secret out of pure, exhausting self-preservation.
We have to look at the somatic toll this takes on the human body. It is not just an emotional issue. It is a profound physiological crisis. Living in secret, constantly suppressing your joy, perpetually scanning the environment for the next covert attack from a jealous colleague or an insecure sibling, it locks the body into a state of continuous somatic and endocrine vulnerability.
Translate that for the listener. What is happening in the body?
Your nervous system is perpetually trapped in a low-grade fight-or-flight state. Your amygdala is constantly firing. You are flooded with cortisol and adrenaline because your brain perceives your social environment as a hostile war zone. Over time, this literally breaks down your immune system. It causes chronic inflammation, autoimmune issues, severe insomnia, and cognitive fog. Your body is deteriorating because you are trying to survive your own success.
It's a devastating paradox. It's the ultimate tragedy of the high achiever. The harder you work to build a great life, the more isolated you become. You are forced to hide your light, to intentionally dim your own brilliance, just so you don't trigger the fragile insecurities of the covert narcissists surrounding you.
But we are not going to leave you stranded on that island. That is not the purpose of this deep dive. We need to move from awareness of the pathology to tactical defense. How do we dismantle this covert system? How do you operate in a world full of crabs and poachers without losing your mind?
This is what everyone wants. Let's open the operating manual. Countertactics and deprogramming. How do we fight back when the attacks are invisible?
Tactic 1. Ego management and downplaying. Torreyson suggests something highly counterintuitive, especially in our culture of constant self-promotion. When you are forced to be around naysayers, threatened colleagues, or toxic family members, you must intentionally practice being meek. You aggressively downplay your victories.
Wait, isn't that just dimming your light? Isn't that letting them win?
It feels like it at first, but it is actually a highly sophisticated tactical maneuver. It creates an optical illusion. You are still the tall poppy, you still have the bank account, the success, the peace of mind, but by managing your ego and deliberately not rubbing it in their faces, they simply don't perceive you as a threat. You bypass their psychological tripwires, you become invisible to their radar, you let them think they are superior in the conversation while you quietly go back to your mansion, so to speak.
It's the psychological equivalent of camouflage. You just blend in with the misery until you can leave the room. I love that. Okay, tactic 2. Reframing the archetypes. This is using the strategies from Tessa West and Amy Gallo to structurally neutralize the predators. Let's go through real-world scenarios. Let's say you are dealing with a bulldozer. The person who dominates every meeting, talks over everyone, and steals the oxygen.
You don't fight them in the moment, you change the architecture of the environment. You structure the meeting agenda so that they are physically and procedurally not allowed to be the first person to speak. You mandate a round-robin format. You force diverse choir voices into the room to establish the narrative before the bulldozer can establish dominance. You constrain them with process.
What about the free rider? The charming slacker who is mining you for labor.
You remove the shadows they hide in. Covert operators need ambiguity to survive. So you introduce brutal clarity. You establish regular, highly public fairness checks. You utilize project management software to publicly document exactly who is responsible for which specific deliverable, and you review it in front of the whole team. Charm and likability cannot deflect a public, written ledger of missing work.
And the pessimist. The one who says every idea is doomed, who just drains the momentum out of every initiative.
You judo their negativity. You use their momentum against them. You reframe their cynicism as an analytical tool. You actually pull them aside and assign them the official role of risk assessor. You say, I value your critical eye. I need you to find the 5 biggest flaws in this plan by Friday. You make it their job to find the problems, which forces them to be constructive and analytical rather than just passively destructive.
That is brilliant. You channel their pathology into a productive deliverable. Tactic 3, overcoming the crab bucket. This is the big one. How do you stop the crabs from pulling you down when you are trying to escape the old neighborhood, the old job, or the old family dynamic?
It comes down to fundamentally shifting your internal operating system from scarcity to abundance. Leon Festinger's social comparison theory explains that we naturally measure our own worth against the people around us. That is the genesis of the crab mindset. It's a zero-sum game. If you have success, it means I have less. If you are attractive, it makes me uglier.
So how do you break that programming?
You utilize Deci and Ryan's self-determination theory. This theory proves that if you are intrinsically motivated, meaning your goals are aligned with your own deep personal values rather than a desire for external praise or status, the crabs literally cannot reach you. When your self-worth comes from the pursuit of mastery and purpose, the insults of a jealous sibling or a bitter coworker just bounce off. You realize they aren't attacking you, they are attacking a projection of their own failure. You aren't playing their game anymore.
And finally, Tactic 4, the sunflower effect, coined by Vivian Jarrett. This is the ultimate cure for tall poppy syndrome. If you are a tall poppy and you are constantly being criticized, ostracized, and cut down, you are simply planted in the wrong field.
Exactly. You must relocate your social circle. You have to actively seek out and hang out with sunflowers. Sunflowers grow tall together. They turn toward the light. You need to find and cultivate a tribe of high performers who are fundamentally secure in their own achievements. People who actually want you to grow, who push you to be better, and who find deep inspiration in your success, rather than petty jealousy.
Find your tribe. Find the people who don't need you to be small so they can feel big. As we bring this forensic investigation to a close, I want you, the listener, to consider everything we've analyzed today. The subtle micro-expressions of deceit, the setup-to-fail resource hoarding in the office, the weaponized victimhood that drains your empathy, the tall poppy pruners, the crabs in the bucket, and the insidious internalized voice of self-sabotage echoing in your own head.
The entire operating system of the covert manipulator relies completely on your blindness. It requires you to doubt yourself. It requires you to believe their unreal persona. But now you see the code. You know how the invisible transactions work. They can no longer operate in the shadows.
After examining all these layers, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If you are currently dealing with this, if you are being targeted, sidelined, passive-aggressively undermined, or gaslit, you need to understand something on a soul level. The reason you are being targeted isn't because you are weak. It isn't because you are flawed or annoying or incompetent. It is the exact opposite. You are being targeted because you possess a competence, a brilliant light, a raw talent, or a deep capacity for empathy that the covert manipulator inherently lacks and desperately, terrifyingly fears.
Your brilliance acts as an inescapable mirror to their mediocrity, and they hate what they see.
So take a hard look at the people in your life today. Pay very, very close attention. Notice who genuinely, freely celebrates your wins. And notice who gets remarkably, chillingly quiet when you succeed. It might be time to pack up your things, step out of the bucket, and let the crabs fight amongst themselves.